This episode is sponsored by Squarespace. It's thanks to their support that our videos like this and more are possible. We just launched our new website on Squarespace and are really impressed. You can check out the link in the description. If you need a website yourself, get 10% off by going to squarespace.com/makeeverything. The lips are one of the most sensitive organs on the human body, and their shape and color are strongly linked to sexual attractiveness and feminine attributes. Some studies have shown that the fullness of female lips can be an indicator of their health and fertility. Historically, the coloring of one's lips to enhance that attribute dates back at least 5,000 years. Coloring made from crushed stones or red soil called ochre were some of the earliest forms of lip coloring. The red dye from the kerme insect was used by Cleopatra for her lips. The fashionability of lipstick has varied throughout history, with it becoming associated with prostitution and sexual immorality at various points, or brought back again because of royalty or other celebrities who popularized it. Lip balm shares a similar history to lipstick, as it contains many similar ingredients of oils and waxes that can help moisturize chapped lips. Lip balm worn by both men and women can be traced back to at least 5,000 years ago in China. Both lipstick and lip balm didn't reach the actual modern stick form until around the turn of the 20th century, previously being more like creams, powders, or paints. For my lipstick, I'm going to go with the same crimson color used since Cleopatra. However, instead of the Mediterranean kerme bug, I'm going to use the bug that eventually supplanted it as an even stronger source of the dye, cochineal. This tiny bug is still commonly used in many shades of lipstick today. Down in Mexico, I got to learn how these little bugs are raised and harvested, taking around 3 months from when they first hatch to when they're ready to be used as a dye. Thanks to Manuel, I was able to collect a batch for myself to take home. Next, I'll need a waxy substance to form the base of my lipstick, so I'm going to collect some beeswax. Back when I made my original sandwich from scratch, I was able to harvest some honey from a colony. However, I didn't get to collect the leftover wax. Fortunately, since then, my brother and his wife have started raising their own bees. So I paid them a visit and accompanied them on one of their regular inspections.
I would smoke that.
Every few weeks, they need to do an inspection and check on the health and size of the colony. One of the big issues is checking to make sure they don't outgrow their hive boxes.
We're 80% full, right? We are going to see we'll put another box on.
Once a box is about 80% full, they start to raise a new queen, and half the colony swarms and flies off to find a new location for a new hive. So if they start to reach that size, you need to add a new box for them to expand their hive into.
They don't have stingers.
They don't have stingers, so if you want, male do not.
No.
Another item that is needed to be checked is the state of the hive's queen. In this inspection, they actually couldn't find the queen. So the next step is then to try and find any fresh eggs, which is evidence that the queen has been there in the past 1 to 3 days.
No, there are no eggs.
No, I haven't seen any eggs.
On one of the frames, they found a cell that contained a new queen larva.
You can see our queen cell right there. See, it's capped on the bottom.
Which means the old one likely died, and the colony is already working on replacing her. Next, a mite check needs to be done to check for any parasites. Their colony last year was nearly wiped out from a mite infestation. Under the hive is a board where any dead bees or mites would fall off onto.
Yeah, you can see little black things. There might be some old ones right there.
Revealing if there is any infestation forming and on which part of the hive it's at. Fortunately this year, they're looking pretty good with minimal mites. Lastly, sometimes the bees form honeycombs outside of the frames, called burr comb, which can just make a mess.
Basically, anytime they're not building where we want it to, we just end up scraping it off and make wax out of it.
So these need to be scraped off, and will provide me with some of the beeswax I'm after.
Now you're a murderer and smash all these baby bees.
Oh, there's babies in there? You didn't tell me that.
Thanks to my brother and his wife, I now have some beeswax. To render it into something useful, I'll just need to melt it and then screen out any dead bugs or other debris. The beeswax will form a fairly hard substance. So next, I'll need some ingredients that will soften it, so it'll spread on the lips. First up, a vegetable oil. I've already made one vegetable oil previously when I made my sandwich from scratch, from sunflower seeds. Unfortunately, I still have a bunch of them left over. Way back then, I built a crude makeshift oil press to extract the oil, which was not the most effective. Fortunately, since then, I've been able to acquire a better press, which makes it slightly easier. Lastly, to soften my lip compounds even further, some cocoa butter. Previously, when I made my own chocolate from scratch, I was able to help harvest the seeds of the cacao tree, which we then fermented, dried, and roasted. From those beans, I was able to press it to extract the fats of the seeds to produce my own cocoa butter. Now that I have my cochineal, oil, butter, and wax, I should have everything to make some lipstick. But before I attempt it, I want to consult with professional cosmetics producer Caroline Wells and do a trial run with some store-bought ingredients first. So I have some cocoa butter and beeswax, and then I took some of the cochineal and tried grinding them up, mixing with a little bit of oil to see how well they mixed.
I'm going to have you swatch those on your hand and show us how much pigment you got out of there, because I'm suspecting you didn't give very much. All right, so that's very, very sheer. So you're not going to get any kind of opacity out of your lipstick. So basically what it's going to end up looking like is it'll look dark like this, but it won't have any pigment payoff. So payoff is the measure of how much color comes off on the skin, and there really won't be a lot of color coming off on the skin.
How would I get more color to come off then?
Well, there's a difference between a dye and a pigment. So these are pigments. This is pigment dispersion of red 28, and it's the closest in color that I could find to a carmine lake. This is actually vegan. We don't use carmine in our lab, but so you can see how much there's more opacity there. And you know, this is also, this is a titanium dioxide, so this is an inorganic pigment, but there's also a lot of opacity there. Another thing that you're going to need to do when you grind this stuff is you can see that there's a whole lot of stuff in here that's not completely ground. You're going to need to make paint, basically. So you're going to need to grind that stuff and grind it and grind it some more and grind it some more in order to get it smooth like those. So those are the textures that I would go for.
Okay.
But anything that's going to be gritty, you're not going to want that.
Okay, so still a little bit ways off.
Yeah.
So the pigment's not really going to work at this point.
Right.
But I can at least make a chapstick out of this, right?
Yeah, you can.
So roughly what type of proportions would I want?
You're going to want more oil than wax and butter. So the butter you'll probably want to limit. I would recommend only about maybe a half ratio of that, and then probably about 3 of this and maybe 1 of that. Maybe more, maybe less. You're going to have to experiment until you find the right thing.
Okay.
If you're going to use the microwave, I would use it very, very slowly. So temper it like chocolate, maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds at a time.
Is that hard enough?
Yeah, it's really going to depend on your personal preference. It also doesn't feel as nice. So are you going to pour this into a stick?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll find out.
Okay.
There you go. All right.
So just pour it into one of those?
You just pour it right down like this.
Oh.
It's called the flood method. So you're going to flood the entire thing with that. Carefully. All right.
That's the best
All
pouring.
right, now we'll put this in the freezer
Okay.
for a few minutes.
Okay. Got most of it on the counter.
Okay. Yep, and if it's opaque, then it's solid.
Okay.
So you can scrape that off. Well, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get those even on the top, and then you're going to put that back in the freezer for a few more minutes. All right, and then you're going to pull that bottom. There you go. There's your lipstick without any pigment in it. Yeah, that's hard enough to be a lipstick, but the question is, does it have any product payoff? And you can tell by, here, I'll show you, this is one of ours, and this has stick structure, so obviously it'll stay in that form. But I'm going to swatch this on your skin, and I'll show you what it should feel like. So see how there's a certain amount of give to that, that gives both the product and the color that comes off. So swatch yours next to it and see if yours is too hard or too soft.
I feel like it's close, but probably a little too hard.
I think it's a little bit too hard to put pigment in. So you're going to probably have to redo this formula again and measure it really carefully so that you know how much is in there.
I think it works good for a lip balm though.
Actually, yeah, it does. I mean, and it's very matte, so because it's got so much wax in it, so it could be a good men's lip balm.
All right, well, thanks for helping me make some chapstick,
Yeah.
and hopefully I can figure out how to make this pigment work.
All right.
Last time with Caroline, I learned there's a little bit more to using the cochineal, and you actually need a compound called alum in order to turn it into a pigment that'll actually work with a lipstick. Unfortunately, alum is a little bit difficult to source. There's some vague information online I've been able to find. Supposedly the ancient Greeks and Egyptians had a natural source for it. However, I don't have that, and I haven't been able to find a way to simply make it from scratch. So for the first option, I'm gonna try using a calcium salt. And some sources have made it sound that that can be used in the place of alum. Sounds like it might produce more of a purple hue, but I'm gonna try it, see if it even works. Supposedly metallic salts in general will work for this process. So I'm gonna try using an iron oxide that I collected in Arizona and use it as an iron salt that will hopefully extract some of the pigment. Then lastly, I'll also do a control with the store-bought alum and see how it's supposed to look. But let's give it a shot. I'm gonna crush up my little bugs, start making some pigments. It won't fall this time. Oh. No, you cannot boil those. So I have some of the iron oxide mixed with water. Just gonna add a little bit of the water to have the calcium carbonate Cody gave me. Calcite, technically. There. Put up an aluminum compound. All right, next have some of my soda ash. I'll add that to some boiling water. Whoa. One of them had the desired reaction. Well, I've made a huge mess. So I've let the different solutions settle and precipitate and have taken off the clearer solution at the top and washed them further so that just the pigment should hopefully settle at the bottom. I'm surprised this one is the clearest one. Calcium carbonate, which I was skeptical would even work, actually seems to have worked the best. This is the alum. So I have the iron oxide here, which has pretty much no precipitant. It's basically no separation. So that's probably basically bust. But I'll strain it anyways and see if anything comes out. I'm going to remove the solution at the top from all of them and then strain them and dry them, and we'll see how these pigments turn out. So dark. It might be because I didn't add enough alum. I got a little bit of powder, it's very weak. So I'm gonna try adding some of the just straight iron oxide to it as well, since it has some kind of a reddish hue. So at least get something that works. Ow. metal gets hot. What a beautiful shade of purple. And by purple, I mean brown. All right, so that turned out pretty brown, but the actual pigment is still pretty purple. So I'm gonna try just using this. But that looks a bit more purple, I think. So last I have the actual cochineal lipstick made with the aloe. So this is how it's supposed to be done. So hopefully we'll get a little bit better of a result from this one. Still a little wet. Definitely looks a lot redder than anything else we've done though. This one might actually work. So here I have all the final results of all the lipsticks and chapsticks I've tried to make. I'd say it actually looks pretty good. And now, I'm gonna do the final test, moment of truth. I'm gonna try it out and see how their spreadability is. And for that, I'm just gonna put it on my arm. That's a fail. You can get a very little bit. It is not that good. It's hard to judge because it's skin tone, but I don't think that worked either. And then actual cochineal with alum. Yeah, that stuff, that actually worked. Everything actually made entirely from scratch failed. It did not even spread, so it doesn't even function as lipstick. As chapstick, it probably works pretty good. But I'm gonna keep going and see what I can do for some other cosmetics, and maybe I'll eventually make it back to making this lipstick work a little better. Maybe later. Thanks again to Squarespace for making this episode possible. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. Create a beautiful website with their all-in-one platform, no coding experience required. They have a ton of templates to choose from, so you don't have to start your designs from scratch. Squarespace provides award-winning 24/7 customer support, and it's simple to set up or transfer an existing domain to Squarespace, so all your websites live in one place. We just transferred our website to Squarespace and really love how easy it is to use and how great our content looks on their platform. Start your new free trial today at squarespace.com/makeeverything to get 10% off your first purchase. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and check out other content we have covering a wide variety of topics. Also, if you've enjoyed these series, consider supporting us on Patreon. We are largely a fan-funded channel and depend on the support of our viewers in order to keep our series going. Thanks for watching.